Ever get that feeling like you think you know something pretty well? Like you've got a handle on it, and then suddenly something comes along and totally upends everything.
Oh, yeah. Like finding out that everything you thought you knew about a whole chapter of history was, well, kind of off the mark.
Exactly. That's exactly what we're dealing with today. Buckle up, because we're diving deep into a brand new archaeological discovery.
A discovery that's raising all sorts of questions about how we understand the Middle Paleolithic period, especially in East Asia.
It really does make you rethink things. We've got this research laid out in the text we shared, but for this deep dive, let's talk about what it all means. What does this new finding tell us about early human history?
And maybe even more importantly, why the idea of East Asia being kind of stuck during a time when other regions were innovating might be completely wrong.
Right. Because when we talk about the Middle Paleolithic, we're talking about a huge span of time. Something like 300,000 to 40,000 years ago.
That's right. And during that time, we see some really important things happening. Think about the emergence of modern humans in Africa.
Right. And across Eurasia, you've got groups like Neanderthals and Denisovans, each developing their own distinct cultures and technologies. It was a dynamic period.
But the traditional view, the prevailing narrative has been that East Asia was sort of lagging behind during all of this.
Like they were missing out on the action.
Exactly. But that's what makes this new finding so exciting. It directly challenges that narrative.
So let's get to the heart of it. What is this discovery that's shaking things up? What did they find?
Researchers from the University of Washington identified and this is key, a complete European-style Quina technological system.
Hold on. A European system. Where did they find this?
At a site called Longtan in southwest China.
Wow, China. That's quite a distance. And how old are we talking?
The Longtan site itself is dated to between 50,000 and 60,000 years ago, but the Quina technology they found there, that's specifically dated to around 55,000 years ago.
55,000 years. So why is that such a big deal? What makes these tools, these European tools in China, so significant?
Because Quina technology, this very specific way of making stone tools, it's incredibly well documented, but in Europe.
So finding it in China is a huge surprise.
A huge surprise. Ben Marwick, who co-authored the study, he said it perfectly. This is a big upset to the way we think about that part of the world in that period of time.
Big upset is right. And it makes you wonder, if they found this, what else is out there waiting to be discovered?
It's like opening a door to a whole new understanding of human evolution in East Asia. This could just be the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, so we've got this Quina technology, right? But I've got to admit, I'm not an archaeologist. What makes it so unique? How can they tell it's European?
Right, good point. It comes down to the tools themselves. The real defining feature of the Quina system is a particular kind of stone tool called a scraper.
A scraper, like something you'd use to, scrape hides or something.
You got it. But these aren't just any old scrapers. Quina scrapers are special. They're thick, asymmetrical, and have a really broad, sharp working edge. And it's not just the shape, it's the way they were made. The specific techniques used to create and maintain that edge, that's a real hallmark of the European Quina tradition.
So it's like they can look at the tool and say, aha, this was made using the Quina technique. Just like that.
Exactly. And at Longtan, they didn't just find one scraper, they found several of them, plus all the flakes and debris left over from their production. And under the microscope, you can see the tiny wear patterns, the scratches and chips.
Showing how they were used.
Exactly. And it looks like they were using these scrapers for working with things like bone, antlers, maybe even wood, tough materials. It's all consistent with how Quina tools were used in Europe.
Fascinating. So we've got these European-style tools dated to the same time period as European Quina tools. That really throws a wrench in the idea that East Asia was lagging behind, doesn't it?
It really does. It suggests that things were far more dynamic, more interconnected than we previously thought. And it makes you reevaluate how we define sophistication when it comes to tools from different regions.
Like we might have been too quick to judge based on what was happening in Europe.
Exactly. We have to broaden our perspective.
So how did these tools end up in China? What are the researchers thinking?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There are two main possibilities. The first is migration. People moving from west to east, bringing their tool-making traditions with them. A direct connection.
It's amazing to think about people traveling such vast distances back then.
I know, right? But there's also the second possibility, and this is equally fascinating.
What's that?
Independent invention. The idea that people in East Asia, completely separate from those in Europe, came up with a very similar solution to a problem.
Like parallel thinking. Two groups of people, thousands of miles apart, coming up with the same technology. That's mind-blowing.
It really is. It speaks to the ingenuity and adaptability of early humans, and it's a reminder that our story, the story of humanity, it's much more complex than a simple straight line.
So how do we figure out which of these possibilities is more likely? How do we solve this mystery?
More research, Marwick suggests looking deeper, digging down into older layers at Longtan and other sites in the region. They're hoping to find earlier tools. Tools that might show a gradual development towards that Quina system.
So like finding the ancestors of those 55,000-year-old tools?
Exactly. If they find a progression, a local evolution, that would be strong evidence for independent invention.
But if they just find these fully formed Quina tools with no precursors, that points to migration.
Exactly. It would be like, boom, the technology just appears fully developed. That would be a pretty strong indication of outside influence.
Incredible. And it's interesting, that this technology has been known in Europe for such a long time, but only now is it coming to light in East Asia. Why do you think that is?
That's a good question. I think it speaks to a few things. First, there's increasing awareness among Chinese archaeologists about discoveries in other parts of the world. They're more familiar with Quina scrapers, so they're more likely to recognize them in their own excavations.
It's like having the right lens to look through. If you don't know what to look for, you might miss it.
Absolutely. And then there's the sheer volume of research being done these days. More excavations, better technology. It all increases the odds of finding something rare or unusual, something that might have been overlooked in the past.
Right. More digging equals more discoveries.
Right. And I think there's another element at play here, too. It's something that Marwick touched on in the text, preconceived notions.
Meaning?
Well, the idea that East Asia was stagnant for so long that nothing much changed, it's been kind of a dominant narrative. And sometimes those narratives can make it hard to see things with fresh eyes.
Like if you're not expecting to find something, you might miss it even when it's right there in front of you.
Exactly. This discovery is a reminder that we need to constantly challenge our assumptions, be open to the unexpected. And as Marwick also pointed out, there's always an element of luck in archaeology. Sometimes you dig for years and find nothing, and then bam, you stumble upon something that changes everything.
It's about being in the right place at the right time with the right knowledge and perspective.
Exactly. And speaking of the future, the researchers have a big goal for future research at Longtan. They want to find human remains.
Wow, that would be incredible. Actual skeletal evidence from the people who made these tools.
That's the dream. If they could find remains associated with the Quina tools, it could help us identify exactly which hominin group was responsible for them.
So we could finally know who these tool makers were, whether they were early modern humans, Denisovans, or maybe even someone we haven't discovered yet.
Exactly. And remember, Neanderthal remains have never been found in East Asia, which makes the possibility of finding Denisovan remains, or even evidence of a completely new hominin species, even more tantalizing.
It just shows how much we still have to learn. And this study, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences just last month, on March 31st, it's clearly a major contribution to the field. The team of co-authors, they come from institutions all over the world: China, Australia, Spain, the U.S., Italy. It's a global effort to understand our shared past.
Absolutely. It really highlights how much collaborative work goes into these kinds of discoveries.
So for our listener, what's the key takeaway from all of this? What do we want them to remember about this incredible find?
I think the most important thing is that this discovery changes how we think about the Middle Paleolithic in East Asia. It challenges the idea of a static, unchanging region and suggests that things were far more dynamic, more connected to the rest of the world than we previously thought.
And it leaves us with some big questions, doesn't it?
Huge questions. Was this technology brought to East Asia from Europe, or did it develop independently? And who were the people who made these tools? Modern humans? Denisovans? Someone else entirely? We don't know yet.
It's like the ending of a good movie. You walk away with more questions than answers, but they're exciting questions, thought-provoking questions. It really makes you think about all the amazing things we still have to learn about our past, about ourselves. And who knows what other surprises are waiting to be uncovered. Maybe the next big discovery is just around the corner, waiting for someone to dig it up and change everything we thought we knew. It's a reminder that the story of humanity is full of twists and turns, and we're still piecing it all together.
And it's a story that continues to unfold even today, with every new discovery, every new piece of evidence. It's a reminder that the past is never truly past. It's always shaping who we are and where we're going.
Well said. And on that note, We'll leave you to ponder all of this. Think about those connections, those innovations, and how our ancestors, no matter where they lived, were constantly shaping the world around them. Until next time.
Happy digging.